One of the most fascinating pieces of research I've ever come across was when researchers did a randomised controlled trial, 182 people, and they randomised them into three groups. Now, the first group were asked to do 3 acts of kindness on one day of the week, each week for a month. So that's 12 acts of kindness for other people over the period of the month. The second group were asked to do 3 acts of kindness for themselves on that day of the week, each week for the month. So 12 acts of self-kindness over the month. And the third group were just a control group. They were just asked to keep a tally of, stuff that they did and stuff that kind of random everyday stuff that sort of happens. And they had blood samples taken at the beginning and at the end of the 4 weeks. And get this is absolutely incredible. The group who'd been kind to others, in their blood, the researchers found that kindness to others had impacted the genetic activity of circulating immune cells. Are called leukocytes. The genetic activity of these circulating immune cells in a way that reduced inflammation and bolstered natural antiviral activity. Isn't that absolutely extraordinary? Now, if you're interested, the genes are called CTRA, and that means conserved transcriptional response to adversity. But the bottom line is, here was an impact of being kind. Here was the impact of being kind on the immune system at the genetic level. Isn't that absolutely extraordinary? So I find that really, really exciting, that kind of real hard randomized control cast iron evidence of the physiological impact of kindness. And there's actually quite a lot of research that shows that kindness and related experiences, compassion and care, all have an impact on the immune system. This just cranked it up a notch in terms of the power of the study. But some earlier studies showed that volunteers who just watched a 1-hour video showing repeated displays of compassion and kindness had a significant elevation in their saliva of an antibody called secretory or salivary. Some researchers call it secretory, some call it salivary, immunoglobulin A. It's really, it lines our mucous membranes, so it's in the saliva, and it's the immune system's first line of defence, really, if you eat or inhale something infectious. For example, even research at HeartMath got people just to feel a sense of care and compassion for 5 minutes. They also got a significant increase in levels of SIGA. Isn't that absolutely incredible? One of the explanations for some of these effects is something I've spoken about quite a lot actually and written about in my books, is on a physiological level, kindness is the opposite of stress. Now, the opposite of stress isn't peace or calm, which I think most people, the mind naturally goes to peace and calm, but peace or calm are more representative of the absence of stress, and the absence and the opposite are not the same thing. Physiologically speaking, the opposite of stress is kindness, and as I've said in other videos, stress dials up stress centres of the brain. An experience of kindness dials the same centres down in exactly the opposite direction. Stress increases blood pressure, kindness decreases blood pressure, and there's biological reasons for that. But one of the reasons for the immune system thing, outside of the genetic impact, which I don't think researchers have actually properly figured out the mechanism of that yet, or the impact of a kind experience on at the genetic level, but out with that, because kindness is physiologically the opposite of stress. Stress tenses the nervous system. Kindness eases that tension. It relaxes the nervous system. Now that allows the body systems to work more optimally, including the immune system. So part of the explanation is a release of stress pressure on the nervous system, allowing the immune system to work more optimally. That doesn't necessarily explain the research showing that kindness had impacted the genetic activity of circulating immune cells. I don't think we've fully understood why that is. I could probably hazard a wee kind of guess at it, in some kind of ways. But the point is, here was kindness having a significant impact at the genetic level. Now, incidentally, in that study, those who were being kind to themselves, there wasn't a genetic impact on the immune system. That doesn't mean that being kind to ourselves, you know, what most people call self-care or self-kindness, it doesn't mean that that doesn't have positive benefits, because of course it does, but most of the benefits of self-kindness or self-care are associated with psychological benefits, you know, on our mind and emotions and on the nervous system. Here, this was a specific effect of being kind to others. Now, part of the reason for it, a deeper underlying reason, that I said I would hazard a wee guess at, is that it's not the being kind itself that brings about the physiological effects. It's the internal experience of kindness. It's what that experience is like for us. It's the internal experience of a kind act. And that's why you get a lot of physiological benefits from not only being kind, but receiving kindness, or even watching it. Hence the immune system, the other immune system study I described a moment ago, when people just watched videos, because it's the internal experience of the kindness, what that feels like, you know, that sense of warmth and connection that you get when you give, receive, or witness an act of kindness. Now, the reason why this brings about physiological effects, this experience, is because we actually have kind genes. Believe it or not, we have genes that are associated with the natural tendency for kindness and for care and compassion, and some of the oldest in the human genome, at least 100 million years old, but their roots are believed to go back much further, probably up to 700 million years ago. And basically, eons ago, our ancient ancestors learned by experience that helping each other out was actually the way to go. That was how to improve our chances of surviving and thriving. It was working together, it was cooperating, not, you know, contesting each other, not fighting against each other, but working with each other was actually much more likely to help our species to survive and thrive. And so which case being kind was associated with, ultimately, therefore, longer lifespan. So what, in essentially, nature baked in a sense, positive physiological benefits of being kind, and some of those are pardon me some of those are the physiological and genetic impact of kindness on the immune system. That's just some of the ways that nature has essentially baked in, right down to the genetic level, the impact, the physiological effects of kindness, because in a sense, kindness became associated with, you know, with a longer lifespan, because by helping each other out, our ancient ancestors essentially lived longer. So systems of the body that were involved in keeping the body healthy to live that long lifespan became associated with kindness. So I would say that's probably why, at the deepest levels, kindness has such profound physiological effects. So anyway, here's a few things to try. Why don't you have a go at trying that immune system study where kindness impacted the genetic activity of circulating immune cells? Obviously, you're not going to measure your own immune function, but you might get a nice wee happiness boost if you give it a try. So just pick one day of the week and do 3 acts of kindness for other people on that day, and just do the same thing once a week for 4 weeks. So you'll have done 12 acts of kindness in the 4 weeks. And don't be surprised if you feel a lot happier. Now, talking about happiness, one thing I ran and founded was something called the 21-day Kindfulness Experiment. Now, I've put the whole playlist on my YouTube channel. It's 21 days where basically, when I ran the actual experiment, every day I sent people a little email with a 2-minute video of me just describing a wee bit of science around kindness and suggesting you consider one aspect of kindness throughout the day. Just a 2-minute video, and then a 10-minute kindfulness meditation practice. That's a blend of kindness and mindfulness. So basically, you're doing a mindfulness practice, which I guide you through, but you're diverting some of your attention to thinking compassionately and kindly. And basically, I sent these 2 videos every day, different videos every day for 21 days, and amazingly, we did it as a proper scientific study, and there was a greater than 30% increase in people's happiness, overall well-being, and sense of connection with others. Isn't that absolutely extraordinary? So if you fancy trying that, I've put the entire playlist on my YouTube channel. So all you actually have to do is click on that playlist. I put the link in the description. All you have to do is click on the playlist, and then every day for 21 days come back and watch the 2 videos for that day. The first one's a 2-minute, just a wee bit of science of kindness, and a little kindfulness meditation practice is the 2 practices for the day. And I've listed them: day 1, day 2, day 3, etc. So give it a wee go and see how you get on. My only word of caution for that is you might end up feeling happier and more connected by the time you finish. So just saying. So anyway, give it a go and see how you get on.